I've got with me Annie, and we're going to be talking about her book. The bookmark fell out. The Guide to Earn Media: How to Use PR Strategies to Enhance Your Brand. Uh, Annie, just before I ask you about where can people find you, really enjoyed the book.
Thank
You taught me loads of things I didn't know. I'm not a marketer. My background is sales, but and we're actually going to talk about some of the things that I learned from reading the book. It's not just about social media; it's about everything to do with earned media, and you share all your experiences and case studies, and it's fantastic.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So where can people find you, Annie?
Well, you can find me on pretty much every social media platform. My name is Annie Scranton, so I'm kind of easy to find. But our company's website is pacepublicrelations.com. So you can check out what we do and our clients and all that good stuff on the website.
Fantastic. So how did you get started in PR? Because you weren't like you weren't born into PR, were you?
No, it's kind of an interesting story. Yeah, I always like to say I accidentally, have a PR career. Started off my professional career as a TV news producer. So I worked for Good Morning America on the Today Show and CNN and MSNBC, most of the major networks. And when I was about 29 years old, I got laid off because the show I was on got canceled. A publicist who I had worked with frequently booking his clients on CNBC emailed me and said, Annie, I don't believe you've had any formal PR training, but you seem like you know a lot of people in the building at CNBC. If you can book my client on any show on CNBC, I'll pay you $500. And I checked out his client. He was a broker. He just had a new book out. He seemed great. I sent his information to my friend who was booking for a dayside hour, and she replied right away and said, he looks great. Can he come on tomorrow? And that was my kind of like proverbial light bulb moment, where I realized that I was in a fortunate position of having worked at so many networks. So I just knew a lot of producers and key decision makers at various networks and shows. And kind of just, started that way. Just said, you know what? I think I can do this because of my connections, and my understanding of the different media outlets. And that's what kind of spurred the whole thing.
So what was the inspiration behind writing the book?
Okay, so I've always wanted to write a book, like bucket list, sort of pie in the sky dream. But actually, that also kind of happened accidentally.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a lot of podcasts and speaking engagements, et cetera. And somebody at my publisher, which is Kogan Page, they're based out of the UK,
Yep.
watched a video of me doing a presentation, and I got a cold email from Kogan Page, and they said, we saw your recent talk and we'd like to meet and talk about a potential book idea. And that's how it came about. But the sort of specifics about making it a guide to earned media is what I do day in and day out. It's pretty much the singular thing that our agency focuses on. And it's a bit of a dying art because there is a lot of new media, and other marketing tactics that all of us communicators are using and trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, my history and background is rooted in traditional earned media. And I believe that it's still really important for brands.
Well, I mean, you tell a story about this. It's not part of a life that I live, but this life of getting people onto to news stories and getting people onto the news, getting people onto as people that are going to give their expert opinion and advice.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big part of what we do. So when a client comes to us, they of course want to promote their company, their brand, maybe announcements or initiatives that they're undertaking, and we do that, and we can do that. However, we always like to also implement thought leadership tactics and subject matter expertise as it pertains to almost all of our clients. And what I mean by that, in particular, when we're dealing with broadcast television and the cable news networks, is to keep a really close eye on the big news stories of the day or trends people are talking about, and then align our clients as those subject matter experts who can speak to those topics.
So one of the things you talk about is pitching clients to TV, and you talk about how the day begins like you're eating a piece of toast and you're watching the TV because you're looking for ideas in terms of subjects that they're going to talk about, and you go, oh yeah, I could get Philip in to talk about that.
100%. I am a news junkie, so I am up really early watching all the morning shows, the cable networks, even before the morning shows start. I subscribe to like 100 newsletters, so I have a pretty good understanding of the big stories of the day. But today, for example, there was a recall on certain eye drops that people use. Well, one of our clients is an ophthalmologist. So, okay, so that's a moment right there where we can align him as that subject matter expert. And we secured an interview for him to do today on that. And that's really helpful to our clients because it's elevating them as sort of the thought leaders within the industry. And of course, every piece of press that we get, they add to their website, they put on their social media, they can optimize it if they invest in SEO. So it's kind of like one piece that really just helps the bigger marketing funnel.
So I've written down under number one, pitching clients to TV, climbing the mountain. Is that what you're talking about in terms of building the influence and the expertise?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to go on the Today Show and talk about their company, you know, or the nightly news or any of these really big ones that are sort of ubiquitous that we all know and trust as media outlets. But the good news is that in particular, when it comes to TV, now there's all sorts of streaming networks and shows out there. So what's really important to keep in mind is that your performance when you're going on television is really important. You know, you can be the smartest guy talking about, you know, really specific stuff, but you have to be able to communicate that in a way that not only the anchor, but the viewer at home will be able to receive, you know, and say, okay, I got some good takeaways from it. And so we do like to start lower on the mountain, right? And then build up towards those really impressive, you know, tier one kind of outlets.
So you really got to get, I mean, you know, going onto podcasts and talking and then going onto the news are quite different things. And actually having a story to tell, and as you say, getting it over in a way that people are going to understand. I guess you need to start off fairly low key before you build up to being on whatever the main show of the news is.
I mean, I think so. There are just, you know, certain clients and individuals that we work with that just are just, it comes more naturally to them, I guess I could say. Like we work with a lot of attorneys. Well, attorneys have to talk all day long in front of an audience. So they tend to be a little bit, you know, better on camera. But we recommend media training for a lot of our clients just to get them comfortable being literally under the camera lights. You know, it can be nerve-wracking. And if you're not a little bit nervous, then you're probably not going to do a great job in the interview. You should have a little bit of those nerves. But like a podcast, you know, that can be more of a free flowing conversation. So you're bringing in maybe, you know, some of your leadership elements, you know, or different aspects. But when it's a straight up news interview, you have about 3 minutes to do this interview. And so you really have to make sure that your answers are tight and you're kind of staying on track for those types of interviews.
I was going to ask about media training. I did a media training course when I was in corporate. It was really interesting because you got to see the other side of what, you know, what is it that journalists want? And quite often what journalists want is that they want a scoop. And that usually means you have to say, and that's and if they get a scoop, it's usually you've said the wrong thing.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, if you have to be really careful when you're talking to the media. So if you're doing anything that is not off the record, then you must assume it is on the record. So that's kind of like, you know, 101, right? And we're fortunate where we staff a lot of interviews also with our clients just to make sure that things are sort of staying on track. But it's just so critically important to make sure that you have your messaging down before you go into these interviews. But even more than that, if you're doing a straight up news interview, like on a specific news story and you're coming in just as that subject matter expert, you have to listen to the questions that are being asked. And I know that sounds so basic, but you'd really be surprised how many people only want to get their point across about what they're doing or what their company is doing. Well, that's the number one way to kind of piss off a journalist or a reporter. It's not a commercial. It's not an advertisement, right? You're doing a news interview. So stay in your lane, and all of the sort of long tail benefits from doing that interview will come about. You will see the benefit to your company and your brand.
And it's interesting you say, because you pretty much cover this in the book, and because you go into a lot of detail in terms of saying the fact that you need to think and prepare before you go for an interview and actually work out what you're going to say. I know that sounds really basic, but there are people that sort of think they're going to wing it, and you don't wing it in those.
I would not recommend it. I would not recommend doing that. And honestly, when we do media training, we actually practice insofar as recording the interview and doing a mock interview. A lot of clients are kind of like, ugh, is that what I look like? Is that what I sound like? And it's not in a way to be negative to them, but it just means that for most people, you just haven't properly prepared yet, and so you need to take it really seriously, because a conversation that you have with your colleague is completely different than a conversation you have on camera for a major news network.
And I think once you actually have the video on you, you've got this camera on you, you've got the lights on you, it's a different feeling altogether.
It is. And we tell clients that to think of yourself as being on camera from the second you walk into the building to do the interview. You got to get that like aura down, you do your power pose, you get ready for it. And it really just helps you get in the right mind frame. So that way you're hopefully being able to focus on giving the best answers possible. And you have the performance aspects like under control.
So one of the other things that you talk about is about taking content and pitching it to reporters. So what you call an op-ed, an opinion piece. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So one popular way to create content is through owned media. So, okay, you have your own website, you have your own social, you have your own blog. Okay. So one way is to start thinking of yourself as that thought leader and creating written content where you are giving your opinion, your take on a big news story. So what we like to recommend to clients is, well, hopefully you should be doing that anyway on your own social platforms, your own website, to create that content, because we know that creating content is one way to really help drive up your SEO. But if you've already done that work, then we and the client can easily adapt that to turn that into an op-ed, an opinion piece that you can pitch to any and all media outlets. Most media outlets have an op-ed page, or they have contributed content that you can pitch. And that's just like another lane that you can go in to say like, okay, we were featured in the New York Times. We were featured, on NBC News. And it's sometimes it can be actually a bit of an easier lift, than securing a one-on-one interview on camera.
And I think that also adds to you or your organization's position as an expert, because I've seen a number of. I was sent a AI article recently, which was from Salesforce, and it was a great article. It didn't say anything about Salesforce or how brilliant they were. It was a beautiful opinion piece about their view of the future of AI and how it's going to change. And when people talk about the word value, I thought it was of value.
Yeah. Well, this is a whole other conversation to have about AI, but I think that for what we've seen, at least, is that we all kind of suffer from writer's block from time to time, or sometimes it's just like hard to get started, right? And so I think using AI in a way to prompt creative ideas, or to help you kind of just like get started or figure out a flow of something is a great way to utilize AI. But what I think editors look for is that really unique opinion about what you're actually talking about. So perhaps AI can do that for you, maybe not. But what AI cannot do is make sure that the opinion that it's generating for you is genuine and authentic to who you are and is also on brand message for your company. And so that's just something that you got to really think about and make sure, okay, is this opinion in line with the values my company have, my employees have, my clients trust us for? So that would be my one word of caution there.
Yeah, my view is that AI is fantastic. It's a great way of supplementing things, but I think most of us at the moment can probably spot an AI article because it's probably extremely well written but boring at the same time.
Yeah, or they use a lot of just like phrases that we don't you really use a lot in conversation, I think for I mean, again, I'm a proponent of writing your own authentic
Yeah, so am
copy.
I.
Yeah. And but I think for, you know, the idea generation, it's fine, and I think it can actually be really helpful. But I think capturing your own voice is still, it probably will be able to do that for you at some point in the not so distant future. But for right now, I think that's pretty important.
Hmm. So one of the other things that you talked about is newsjacking. Is that what we talked about earlier on, where you'll find and trending a news story?
Yeah, it is. It is. That's exactly what it is. And for most industries, you actually can newsjack. I mean, there are obviously some that are going to be that'll be more inclined for a producer to kind of reach out to you. So, like politics, or if you're an attorney or you're a financial expert, to talk about the markets or kind of like what's going on, topics that are like really covered on a day-to-day basis on cable news and in newspapers, et cetera. But there are always trends that are happening in every single industry. So, we represent a jewelry company, a gold jewelry company. Well, there are new trends all the time about how women are wearing their jewelry, what are the newest looks, how do you pair certain jewelry with certain outfits? I mean, so you can always lean into that and then align your client as somebody who can give a quote or two, about the trend, about that. And it's just a way to really round out a PR campaign.
Yeah, we both myself and my business partner quite often get asked for. Well, I get asked for quotes a lot, but Adam seems to go on the BBC News quite a lot about things, and because they're always looking for opinions about social media. I've been on the BBC News about when the royal family opened a was it an Instagram account or a Twitter account or something, and they asked my opinion on it. So there's always people that are, there's always researchers within those organizations that are looking for people that have an opinion.
There are. And like once you can get in with those producers or those journalists and you give them a good interview, you give them what they wanted, then just like you mentioned with your colleague, they're going to keep calling you. They're going to keep coming back to you. And, not only then are maybe a couple million people watching that one particular interview, but you have that clip then that lives forever that you can always use on your social, your SEO, your e-newsletters, your marketing efforts. And we've just seen time and time again with clients that say when they're going after a new client, that client says to them, well, I watched your interview, and I really liked how you spoke about this or that. It kind of just lets people see you in action and kind of like see how you would respond to a specific situation. And it allows them to get a sense of who you are and sort of start building that trust, I think.
Annie, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your new book, The Guide to Earn Media: How to Use PR Strategies to Enhance Your Brand. Fantastic book. Thank you so much. Where can I, if I was going to buy the book, where would I better buy it?
Sure. You can go to our publisher's website, which is koganpage.com, and it's also available on Amazon.
And where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. It's Annie Scranton is my name. You'll find me on there.
Annie, thank you so much for coming on and talking about earned media. Fascinating subject. One that, and hopefully people have been able to learn something from this as well.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. This was
You're
a really
welcome.